Alright, somebody say the word, and I dome Nick Corey at the beginning of the game, regardless of faction.
What's the word?
Say it.
I
Say
got
it.
it.
Don't say that word.
You got it.
That's offensive.
Got him.
Oh, not
We got him! Oh! Oh!
Karma is unbelievable.
Where's the where's the sulfuric acid?
My work here is done. In the following clip you saw, I literally killed Nick Corey at the start of the game, and he was the traitor, and so I got it right. And so you may think at first that this is a pure stroke of luck, but in reality, I actually had a 40% chance to get this right. Hey guys, just want to make a quick little video here on this bullshit PowerPoint I made in about 30 minutes, put no effort into, but it's going to go over a couple strategies I use when I play TTT, because a lot of people say I RDM, and while it's absolutely true, it's not everything I do. And real quick, I just want to shout out Lo-Fi Hip Hop Beats Radio for making the soundtrack for this, because I'm too lazy to put it in the editing. Alright, so let's begin. So the first thing I want to note is that you should make no friends, right? Having friends is stupid. Anyways, so this is just some simple math I'm going to outline when you're playing the game. So this is all using equally likely probability, which is basically the odds are always equivalent. There's very little factors. Obviously, it varies the most with the player size. It doesn't affect the game linearly, so it's not like when you add another player, it changes the percentages evenly. And this is mostly due to the fact that the number of innocents and the number of detectives, it increases linearly, but only at certain rates, right? So I kind of just did. So there's a 5-person game example and a 7-person game example, and these are just like okay sample sizes. Because a 5-person game, I believe, only has one traitor, because the game rounds down. And in a 7-person game, there's 2 traitors and a detective. I just kind of got these off. That's just kind of like how we play usually. And then I kind of just used these generic statements. So I just kind of made the assumption that you'd lose 200 karma for killing an innocent, and you gain 100 for killing a traitor. These numbers aren't exactly right. They're affected by a variety of factors in the game's code that I didn't think were obvious to me until I looked at them. But they're not that important. But it just wants to like prove it's to prove the validity of playing like a probability. So the first thing that all of you thought is that I don't believe you, none of this shit is real, and while you may not like it, this is the probability I've deduced on how exactly you can win games using probability. Um, some of these stats are based off the game odds, and a lot of these are really only useful for the first 10 seconds of the game. After that, obviously, like if you see a guy die, throw all the shit out the window. It's not useful anymore. And also, I just want to note, being an emotionless being and playing only with being emotionless would lead to statistical play, and at best you'd break even, and most likely you just face penalties for facing the averages, right? And you can see this in the first example. So this is a 5-game play. This is a 5-player game, right? Um, and it just assumes that you, the player, are innocent, and one of the other 4 people is a traitor, right? So right off the bat, with 0 deaths, you have a 1 out of 4 chance because there's 5 players, and obviously you're not a traitor, right? So you can take yourself out of the count. So you have 1 out of 4 chance. So you have a 25% chance of just ending a guy's life and getting it right. And so on average, your karma, after the karma is factored out, you would lose 200 karma about 75% of the time, and you'd gain 100 karma 25% of the time. Because remember, it's just assuming that you're gonna lose 200 karma for killing an innocent, and you're gonna gain 100 karma for getting the bad guy. So this would deal out 875. So you'd end up the round with 875 karma. So you'd lose 125. So it's pretty bad, honestly. I believe this would put you in the range that you're doing a good amount less damage. So after there's 1 death, right? Obviously, all these deaths assume it's not the traitor, but the game would end if it was the traitor. So I feel like it's not that big of a deal. So after 1 death, there's still 33% less, and um, while your odds change a little, your karma reduction on average doesn't change that much either. So in all honesty, you're still playing the same game between 1 out of 4 and 1 out of 3. When there's 2 deaths, you have a 50% chance. Now, while these are okay odds, you're still gonna lose karma on average. Because remember, there's still a little more. You lose karma more for killing innocent than actually getting the traitor. It's not 1 to 1. Um, and then obviously if there's 3, you're gonna get it right every time, and so you get a pretty good boost for getting the traitor, right? And I animated those and I forgot. All right, so that's a 5-player game. We don't play 5-player games that often, so I didn't really spend that much time thinking about it. So this is a 7-player game. And this is my first model, and this is assuming all the rules survive. So basically, both the traitors make it to the end, and so does the detective, right? So at 0 deaths, so you can subtract yourself out of the count, and you can subtract the detective because he's obviously innocent. So out of the 5 players left, 2 of them are traitors. So if you just gun a guy down at the beginning of the game, actually you have a 40% chance of getting it right, and so you're only going to face like about a 8% karma loss for doing this. And in all honesty, in the grand scheme of things, if you do this like once every 10 games, you could get it right, and so it's very likely. So after one guy dies, you're down to 2 to 4. So now 50% of the people are traders, right? So you could start making some pretty good guesses, but it's still not safe. You're still not in the red zone. So now, with 2 traders and 1 innocent left, you now most of the people are traders, right? So if you gun down everyone, you would come out ahead. But you wouldn't come out ahead a lot. You would actually be about the same, right? So you could easily win the game, right? But you gotta remember that it's a 2-on-1, so it's still not a great scenario. So then obviously after 3 deaths, it's 2-on-2, and you're kind of screwed. Because likely the detective is not going to believe you at all. So there's a couple faults with this model. So obviously this is true for all of them. There's no human part involved. Obviously, like as soon as people start playing the fucking game, you can throw all this out the window. But the takeaway of this is that the ends kind of justify the means, right? So if you kind of like gun a guy down and he's a traitor, your odds weren't exactly terrible this whole entire time, since none of them were the traitor. So now this is a 7-player game, and this is my second model. And so basically, the traders make it through to the end, but the detective dies first. All right. Um, and as you can see here, looking through the statistics are literally the exact same, except there's just an extra death. And the reason why is because obviously, when the detective dies, your probability of guessing the other traders doesn't change, and it's because you just knew the detective was right away. But what it does change is it changes the odds. So now it's kind of like a 1v5, and you got to like get 3 people to believe. You got to believe at least 3 people, right? Or you got to believe at least 2 people, right? Because now it's 3-on-3, and so now it's kind of like 50-50, right? But basically the point of this model is the fact that when the detective dies, the probability doesn't change at all. It just changes the amount of manpower you have. Alright, so this is a 7-player game, and so this model is based off a traitor dying first. So let's say you get it right. Let's say you get the 40% odds right. Or it's right here. So let's say you get the 40% right. You gun down a traitor, right? The first thing you should do is absolutely not kill anyone, because your odds go from 40% to 20% of getting the traitor right, like kind of randomly. Uh, and so, you know, instead of going from, 2 out of 5 times being right, you're now at 1 out of 5 times right. So you have half the odds. And so before, like, this was still like a failing average. Like, you're still facing a 8% karma drop. Now you're facing a 16% karma drop, or not 16%. You're facing a 14% karma drop. So it's not really worth it. You're gonna lose 14% of your damage over, 1 death. It's not worth it. Um, and then obviously it kind of increases linearly though. So if we go back to the last chart, it went from 40 to 50 to 67 to 100. So it didn't really increase that great. Here it increases it increases at almost the same rate. Like the difference between all of these, well, from 1 death to 2 deaths, it's only 5%. So you're still kind of facing the same game. But then it goes up 8%, and then 27, and then 50. So this is a really slow exponential curve, and honestly, the probability is not the same, right? So if you get the trader first, obviously it's beneficial because then you only got to find one guy, and it's a 1 in 5. So this is obviously a great situation. But when it's the 1 on 5, RDMing is not a viable strategy, right? You can't really get it out. And so then here I'm just this is just a quick model. So this is like if the trader dies third. So if like one of the traders dies in the middle of the game, you get him. So obviously your first two stats are the same. It's 40 to 50%. And then once you kill the trader, or after 2 deaths, you have a 67% chance. So it's kind of likely you'll break even if you just RDM one person at this rate every game. But after 3 deaths, you go back to 50%. So now you're kind of facing the 5%. So it's it's still kind of likely. Um, but basically, this is just the point of this model is that it kind of proves that RDM is kind of appears viable before the traders die, right? And so that's it for my models. Now I'm gonna throw you a bone, and I'm gonna say half of what I said was true, right? So this probability part, so like the probability of getting the trader right, that's true. Obviously, that doesn't really change, except when you factor in human thinking, like seeing a guy die or whatever. But the karma penalty wasn't exactly true. This is kind of like a guesstimate that we kind of like threw together after I started bitching that my karma was really low, even though I killed more traders than innocents after for 2 rounds. But these are basically the default karma settings you can get online. And so I want to make it real clear, I'm not advocating to change these at all. They're fine in reality. I'm just playing bad. But it does affect that the risk reward I was trying to go after with the karma reduction here, right? So karma. So when you kill an innocent, the karma you lose is based off of 2 factors. Actually, it's based off the damage you deal, and it's also based off of the victim's karma, right? And so I'll give a couple examples of this. And so I thought this is on the TTT website, and I thought this was kind of vague because this doesn't exactly like explain the math. It kind of just says it kind of just explains the math for the karma kill penalty, and then obviously the flat bonuses, i.e. these numbers that are not clearly percentages, those are just flat additions. So I kind of got this off of the GitHub for the game, right? And so this is the actual code that's programmed into the game. So basically the damage penalty you get is based off of the victim's karma and then the damage you do, right? And so I kind of give an example here. So using the penalty function, if you kill an innocent at 100 at full health and they have 1,000 karma, the damage penalty you get is the karma times the damage they had times the karma ratio. And if we go back to this slide, the default damage ratio is 0.1%, right? So it'd be times 0.001. And so if you kill an innocent, the damage alone that you do to them is 100, and then the kill penalty is actually just the same as the damage penalty, but instead of using their damage, it uses the default kill penalty. And so if we go back to here, we see default, it's 15. So it's kind of like you did 15 damage, and so this is 15 karma, and it's okay, but it's honestly negligible. The damage part is the real factor here, right? And so if you gun down an innocent, you lose 150 karma, right? So in order to make up for this, killing it, so in order for it to be even, you have to get 115 for killing a trader, but that's not exactly true. Killing a trader actually is at a much slower curve. So again, killing a trader is based off the damage you do, right? And it's the same formula basically. It's the karma of the trader times the health they had times the trader scalar. So if we go back here, the default trader scalar is actually a third. They say it's about you're rewarded 1/4 the penalty you get if you were a full karma innocent, right? And basically what this says to me is that basically the damage penalty you get from you kill someone, if you do that damage to a trader, you get a third of that back, right? So if you kill a trader at full health and they have 1,000 karma, you get 30, right? So it's pretty good. Is that right? Compute reward. So it's math get float. Oh yeah, so this 1,000 right here, Sorry. So the 1,000 isn't actually the trader's karma. It's actually a default value, and it doesn't say it back here. But if you like look into the GitHub file, um, this default value is just like 1,000 karma, right? So it basically gives the traders default karma for killing them. So basically, that like if you the damage you do is 30, but to make up for it, you got killing them. So getting the final blow alone gets you a flat 40 karma, right? So that's pretty nice. So if you literally just RDM the trader right off the bat, you would get 70 karma, right? And so you get 115 for gunning down an innocent at full health, but you get 70 for killing a trader at full health. So in essence, 70 times 2 is 140, 115. These averages, the risk rewards, aren't exactly right, uh, but they're similar in like percentages. So instead of like it being 920, this would probably be like 950, and this would be like 970. And in the grand scheme of things, this would probably be like 995 or something like that. But the difference they are from 1,000 is kind of like the big point I was trying to get. So obviously, killing someone when there's 0 deaths, you have a 40% chance of getting it right. The risk reward is not too bad, honestly. You make the game a 1v5 right off the bat. It's kind of worth it, right? And so, in conclusion, RDM is viable, but you shouldn't really get butthurt when you die first thing as a trader, because the probability is almost 50%, and so it's not that beneficial for you. So the odds really aren't that great for you in a trader. You're really outnumbered, right? So you should be aware of the probability, but this shouldn't really be a game-breaking thing. Obviously, like seeing a guy get shot is always a great sign, and we play with the same people every fucking day. So you should really like figure out like their tendencies, and that's all I had to say.